Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of Forbidden Fables. Tonight, we journey deep into the heart of the Appalachian Trail, a place of breathtaking beauty, solitude, and unusual mystery. This legendary path, stretching over 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine, holds not only the promise of adventure, but also the whispers of the unknown. Throughout the decades, hikers have shared unsettling stories, encounters with the supernatural, vanishing fellow travelers, and the haunting presence of something that defies explanation. This evening, we bring you 3 chilling tales from the depths of these ancient woods, stories that will make you question the very nature of reality. Gather around and listen closely as we unravel the spine-tingling experiences of those who dared to walk this path alone. From the whispering pines to the vanishing hiker, and finally, the phantom campfire, these accounts are not just stories. They are warnings etched into the wilderness. So, light a candle, settle in, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. Welcome to Haunted Hikes, true horror stories from the Appalachian Trail. Story 1: The Whispering Pines. Ever since I was young, hiking the Appalachian Trail had been my dream. I finally embarked on this journey last fall, starting from Georgia with plans to hike northward. The beauty of the trail was everything I imagined: serene, breathtaking, and at times, overwhelming in its grandeur. One evening, after a long day of hiking, I set up camp near a secluded section of the trail. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow through the trees, and I felt a sense of peace as I settled down for the night. As darkness fell, I started to hear whispers. Faint, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. At first, I thought it was the wind rustling through the pines, but as the whispers grew more distinct, I realized they were voices, though I couldn't make out any words. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent. I finally decided to investigate. Grabbing my flashlight, I stepped out of my tent and scanned the area. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound the faint murmurs of the whispers. I couldn't see anyone, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I retreated to my tent, trying to shake off the unease. The whispers continued throughout the night, ebbing and flowing like the wind. I barely slept, my mind racing with fear and confusion. The next morning, I packed up and continued my hike, hoping to leave the whispers behind. But as I walked, the feeling of being watched never left me. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent chills down my spine. A few days later, I met another hiker, a man named Tom. We decided to hike together for a while, and I told him about the whispers. His face grew serious, and he told me he'd heard similar stories from other hikers. Stories of haunted sections of the trail where people disappeared without a trace. We continued hiking together, finding safety in numbers. But even with Tom by my side, the sense of unease persisted. One night, we both heard the whispers again, faint but unmistakable. We stayed close to our campfire, not daring to venture into the darkness. We eventually made it out of the haunted section of the trail, but the experience left us both shaken. I completed my hike months later, reaching the northern terminus with a sense of relief. The trail had shown me its beauty, but it had also revealed its darker, more sinister side. To this day, I can't explain what I experienced on the Appalachian Trail. The whispers, the feeling of being watched, they were too real to dismiss as mere imagination. I still love hiking, but I approach the wilderness with a newfound respect and caution, always listening for the whispers of the pines. Story 2. The Vanishing Hiker. I've always loved hiking and exploring new trails. When I set out to hike the Appalachian Trail, I was excited for the adventure ahead. Starting from Georgia, I planned to make my way north, experiencing the trail's natural beauty and challenges. One day, I decided to take a lesser-known path off the main trail, seeking solitude and untouched nature. The path was overgrown and difficult to navigate, but I felt a thrill of excitement as I ventured deeper into the forest. After a few hours, I stumbled upon an old campsite. It looked abandoned, with an overgrown fire pit and remnants of a tent. As I explored, I found an old, weathered journal half buried under leaves. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. The journal belonged to a hiker named Mark. His entries started like any other, but soon turned ominous. Mark wrote about feeling watched, hearing strange noises at night, and seeing shadows moving among the trees. His last entry, dated over a decade ago, warned, "If anyone finds this journal, beware. The forest is not what it seems." I felt a shiver run down my spine, but decided to move on. That night, I set up camp a few miles away. As darkness fell, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. I tried to sleep, but was awakened by the sound of footsteps outside my tent. I peeked outside, but saw nothing. The footsteps stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The next morning, I packed up quickly and continued on the trail, but the feeling of being watched never left me. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig made me jump. A few days later, I met another hiker named Laura. She was heading southbound and seemed relieved to see another person. I told her about the old campsite and the journal. Her face went pale. She had heard similar stories of hikers disappearing in that area. We decided to stick together for the next few days. Even with Laura by my side, the sense of unease persisted. We both heard footsteps at night and felt eyes watching us from the shadows. One night, we heard a blood-curdling scream, followed by an eerie silence and the sound of footsteps approaching. We grabbed our gear and ran, not stopping until we were miles away. We didn't speak of it, but we both knew we had to get back to the main trail. I eventually completed my hike, but the experience changed me. The trail had shown me its beauty, but it also revealed a darker, more sinister side. When I tell people about my journey, I leave out the part about the vanishing hiker and the eerie footsteps. Some things are better left unsaid. Some stories better left untold. Story 3. The Phantom Campfire. Ever since I was a kid, I loved hiking. So, when I finally got the chance to hike the Appalachian Trail, I jumped at it. Starting in Maine, I worked my way south, experiencing the trail's full range of beauty and challenges. One evening, I found a perfect, secluded clearing to camp. As darkness fell, I lit a fire and enjoyed the warmth. But as the hours passed, I started to feel an odd sense of unease. It was subtle at first, a prickling at the back of my neck, a feeling of being watched. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just my imagination. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger. I glanced around the clearing, half expecting to see someone standing at the edge of the firelight. But there was no one there. That night, I heard a faint crackling sound, like a distant fire. I unzipped my tent to take a look and saw another campfire burning about 100 yards away. I hadn't seen anyone else around, and there was no way another hiker could have set up camp so close without me noticing. I decided to investigate. Grabbing my flashlight, I made my way toward the other campfire. As I approached, the fire seemed to waver and fade, like a mirage. When I reached the spot where it had been, there was nothing there. No fire, no campsite, no sign that anyone had been there at all. I stood there, bewildered and a little scared. The forest was silent, the air still. I shone my flashlight around, but there was nothing, just trees and shadows. I retreated to my tent, my heart pounding. Back at my campsite, I doused my fire and tried to sleep, but the memory of the phantom fire haunted me. The next morning, I packed up and left the clearing, eager to put some distance between myself and whatever had happened there. A few days later, I met another hiker named Sam. We decided to hike together, and I told him about the phantom fire. Sam listened intently and told me he'd heard similar stories from other hikers. Tales of ghostly campfires, whispering voices, and strange disappearances. Sam and I stuck together for the next few days, finding safety in numbers. We avoided the haunted sections of the trail, but the sense of unease never completely left me. I couldn't stop thinking about the phantom fire and the whispering voice. I completed my hike months later, standing atop Springer Mountain with a sense of accomplishment and relief. The trail had tested me in ways I hadn't expected. Despite the strange and unsettling experience, I was proud of what I had achieved. When I tell people about my hike, I often leave out the part about the phantom campfire. It's a story that's hard to believe, something that sounds like it belongs in a ghost story rather than real life. But every now and then, when I'm alone in the woods or lying awake at night, I think about that distant fire and the voice that called my name, and I wonder if I'll ever truly understand what happened.